So when on the recovery journey, sometimes it's important to not always think with your OCD hat on, all right? And by this I mean, it's really imperative that as you go throughout the recovery journey that you're still having some sort of awareness for those life things that are still happening around your OCD. And I'll give you some examples in a minute, excuse me. But the thing is, when we have OCD, right, and we're stuck in the cycle, the blinkers are very much on. We're so consumed with our fear, we're so consumed by our obsessions, we're so preoccupied by how we're possibly going to get out of where we are. We sort of lose that awareness of life happening around us, right? And we sort of put that on the back burner in many ways, and that can also, come to our detriment, right? So I'll give you some examples to help, really understand this point. So if you're in a relationship, right, and you've got relationship OCD, your OCD is going to be so obsessed with, getting reassurance from the partner, maybe making sure that they've not cheated on you, maybe getting reassurance that you love them or they love you, etc. All those different things that our OCD does. And with that, the OCD blinkers are very much on, all right? You're doing those behaviors and activities. You're trying to get that right feeling in order to just feel better, all right? But what we tend to forget is that when we're doing these things with our OCD hat on, we're also not thinking about the life element that comes into that. So if you're constantly asking your partner for reassurance, right, that maybe that they love you, or maybe that they haven't cheated on you, or maybe that they haven't done something with somebody else in the past, if you're asking them that, 3 to 4 times a day for, a long period of time, what you're going to do is you're going to really alienate your partner, right? They're going to be, more than likely, they're going to be sick of you. You might push them away, and you might actually, in a roundabout way, be pushed further away from the thing that you want, which is a relationship, right? So thinking from the life perspective there, how beneficial would asking reassurance and avoidance behaviors be for the relationship and your bond that you have with the other person? It wouldn't actually be the best thing in the world, would it? Right? And OCD, of course, will put the blinkers on. It will make you overlook that reality and just make you a bit selfish in many ways, because it's like, you want that answer now, you want that instant gratification, right? And it'll forget, in many ways, it will forget the interest of the other person, all right? So you really, really need to think about, the crossover with life and the impact that it's going to have on other people in that regard. You really need to take off that OCD hat, right? Another example as well, say that you have OCD latched onto your job and you're scared of maybe not being in the right job or not working your purpose, passion or meaning, right? What you end up doing is you end up having a really high rate of job churn. So you might jump from one job to the other, chasing that sensation of it being the right job. Maybe when you get in that job, you get that icky feeling and that you want to avoid that job, and you end up getting another job. And then you sort of stay in this cycle that repeats and repeats, and you end up having, loads of job in a short period of time, right? I remember with me, there was one point in my early 20s when I had about 7 or 8 jobs in the space of 2 years, right? A year and a half, 2 years, not very good for my life. But, I was so dialed into the OCD side of things about finding the right job, purpose, passion, meaning. I actually overlooked that life element, right? And that life element was, well, how beneficial was it going to be if I'm jumping from one job to the other, if I've had 7 or 8 different jobs within a short space of time? I'm not saying there's anything inherently wrong with that, of course, but, life circumstances do happen. But the reality is, if I had the opportunity to stay at a job and I'm churning out the jobs like that, the reality is that probably isn't going to be that good for my career, because I'm still, trying to find the right fit. I'm jumping from one job to the other, industry to industry, trying to find that right fit. Whereas in reality, I'm not going to be able to maybe hold down a spot and maybe, improve my skills and get a promotion and get more money, because I'm always, on the move, right? So again, that's another example of how we really need to think, not only with our OCD hat on, but also with our life hat on too. And as you do that, as you also think with your life hat on, that can really encourage you to not partake in the compulsions and avoidance behaviors. And it also puts a lot more emphasis on your recovery, because that as you do recover, those life aspects are likely going to improve as well. But you also realize that for the sake of your life, you can't keep engaging in these OCD behaviors, because it's just not going to be productive for your life. How productive is asking your partner for reassurance for 10 times and you love them? More than likely they're going to leave you. Like I said, how productive is it going to be to keep on leaving jobs when you can't hold one down and maybe get a promotion and build yourself up? So you need to use that as a big motivation, the life aspect, the life impact that's going to have. And that can also really help you to give you an incentive to really work on your OCD and say, hey, look, I'm going to try and do my best to recover from OCD here, not just from, the physical benefit, the mental benefit, but also the life benefit too. All right. So that's something really key to focus on when you're on the recovery journey.